Good morning, everybody that has joined this fifth exchange session on the MetLAC Community of Practice on reduction of methane emissions in Latin America and the Caribbean from CNP MetLAC, and welcome to the members of the Community of Practice of Bioenergy that are joining us as attendees this morning, and thank you for being with us today. And in this session, we are performing a session that we started on MetLAC session that started October 1st, related to the potential and opportunities to strengthen waste management in the undetermined contribution from our countries. So, Melchorita, you can go ahead. I wanted to remind you that we're gonna have a presentation in English for the people that speak English or that rather watch this session in English. We have simultaneous translation, and you could see that you can select in the control panel below in your screen. You could find the translation channel, either English or Spanish, to hear the interpretation or the audio in the language that you prefer. So today we're gonna be developing this agenda. And after this small introduction, we're gonna have an introduction to the topic. We are going to discuss some of the topic that we discussed in the MetLAC workshop. We're gonna share 3 experiences. That means how we are including organic residues management in 3 countries, Colombia, Honduras, and Brazil. These are the members of MetLAC. And then we're gonna have a discussion based on questions and remarks from the audience. It is relevant to focus on how we can move forward in our countries. So organic waste management could be visual in the NDCs as one of the climate change mitigation options. And we're gonna finish with some notices by or some announcement from the COP. Some relevant topics on why we're here. Well, first of all, in LEDS LAC workshop, we know that we talk about a lot of acronyms, and people don't know how much or what does that mean. And the people that work on this, we're hoping that they know what it is, but it's important to remember that these are the national determined contributions that each country has determined under the Paris Agreement, detailing what they would do to help meet the global goal to mitigate the worldwide temperature to 1.5 Celsius, adapt to climate impacts, and ensure sufficient finance to support these efforts. So those are the plans that the countries with goals, that's what they introduce in the framework of the Paris Agreement. And most of the countries are updating this information for the next COP in 2025. And now I would like to just discuss some of the elements for this execution. Recently, UN environment introduced the Global Waste Water Management Outlook. And it's important to mention that this is waste water. And I think that it is important to mention something that the report states. It is important to tackle the meaningful impacts on waste generation. And historically, we have underestimated the waste management when it comes to climate change. This has led to insufficient investment in reduction and management of waste, sufficient mitigation of climate change. So this is quite relevant. Obviously, our approach is related to organic waste, but it is important to see how we can call upon to increase visibility, investment on waste management. For us, organic waste as actions related to mitigation and climate change. Now, when it comes to organic waste, it is important to see this chart. This is something that I subtracted from the NDC synthesis report on the UNFCCC, where we see that 77% of countries that are part of the agreement, they mention waste as their mitigation options. But for example, if we discuss specific topics, the information is less frequent. For example, we can see composting, it's only discussed in 26%. And I found also data from the National Resource Defense Council for 2022. And we have an analysis of the NDC. And we were seeing the reduction of lost and the waste of food in this case, and only 21 countries mentioned this. That's why this is a bit higher than 10% of the countries or the members that are part of the convention. So we know that there's much to do. So organic waste management could be included in the NDC. This is clear even more. I think we can know about what are the barriers, and I'm sure that you're going to be, we are going to be discussing the methane reduction and the contribution of organic waste to the methane emissions. And that's why we have all of these opportunities, and that's what we wanted to discuss today, considering the experience of 3 member countries. So the thing in the end would be, how do we take advantage of our potential contribution on waste management? And how are we going to tackle climate change? How do we take advantage so the resources could help us? So the climate policy and other related to waste management could have a coherence. And also we could be performing investments or other type of investments in waste management. This would contribute to reducing emissions, but also to health, the local environment, as well as other benefits that we have. So without further ado, and I want to apologize for taking more time in this, but I would like to thank Maciel Hernandez and invite him so he could share some information before going to the presentation. Graciela? We had a mentee. We have a practical activity. That means how can we help you as members of the community? So we asked you to enter into the code 382051 or even scan the QR, which is to the left, please. As you can see, we have the organic waste management topics related to your NDC. Now, it's okay if you don't know, but it's part of the learning activities that we have in these sessions. We have 10 yes, 7 participants that don't know. Next question would be, what is the main challenge in setting ambition targets related to the topics in the NDC? Basically, organic waste management in your NDC. It should be a cloud, so you should have the possibility of writing these challenges. Challenges could be related to the relationship between the different ministries, lack of incentives, lacks of incentives related to this type of practice. It could be lack of awareness. These are other barriers that we could visualize in this type of projects or initiatives. We have some policies, finances, lack of behavior, which is related to awareness of the population. We have alliance, public and private, cooperation with the government. We have a lack of political interest in the region. Okay, perfect. Well, thanks everybody that has participated. We had a good mapping on the challenges that we could visualize in each of the countries that have not been represented. So in certain countries, we could have this type of pains. We can also share these problems. Now, let's go to the presentations, please, Melchorita. Go ahead. Okay, as Ana Maria has mentioned, we had a session in Brazil, and we showed the experience of 3 countries in the region, Brazil, Chile, and Colombia. Since this is included, I'm sure that we are going to be sharing this experience, and it's important to mention the case from Chile. We would like to highlight that in November 2022, Chile had a document of strengthening the NDC, including generation of residues per capita, as well as the municipalities, also discussing the reduction of municipal waste. And also they were talking about reduction of methane with practices of valorization, among others, as well as biogas. And of course, these type of practices are aligned with the strategy that as a country they have, or MRO. Having said that, the conclusion is not to just get into detail with that from this session, is that each country has specific challenges, and we could identify common activities that are key. For example, interministry collaboration, taking advantage of biogas, the need to have incentives and practices, prediction of organic waste in all other countries. So these type of activities would help in the transition with a meaningful reduction of methane as considered as defined in this community of practice. Now, in this session, we have had discussions among the different items on the people that were involved. And I think it's interesting to mention that in the first time we discussed the need of having creation of incentives and elimination of subsidies. Through biogas, of course, we're not trying to replace this type of efforts. And we wanted to make sure that there's a demand of the different treatments, for example, among others that are existing in the region. We wanted to identify the infrastructure, the taking advantage of the biogas. And another item which is important is prioritize prevention on management and following this hierarchy. And we need to avoid that this ends up in places of final disposal. And we could highlight the promotion of successful cases related to practicing reduction and generation of residues. That would be as a reference and inspiration of other countries, because this could empower different initiatives among different contexts. So part of what we're looking as a community of practice is we want to reduce these or include these successful cases and include that among our members. Now, I'm going to continue. I'm going to introduce the panelists that are going to be helping us in this session. First, we have Isliani Angulo. She is an advisor to the Vice Ministry of Energy. We have Jorge Cárcamo from Honduras. He is an energy specialist at the National Directorate of Energy Planning. And Victor Argentina, he is a coordinator of waste, solid waste projects and climate. And let's hope that this will be an important talk for all the members. Okay, so thank you, Ana Maria. And thank you to the community for this invitation. I don't have much time, so I'm going to try to move forward. And in the questions, we could discuss other things related. Having said that, we have discussed the bioenergy as a climate change motor in Colombia. So we are including biomethane and biogas as energy in the transition. Here we have, for example, this is brief content. I wanted to discuss the context of NDCs and LTS in public policies, including organic waste, and using this in bioenergy within NDCs and LTS, progress and challenges in implementing the NDCs. And here I wanted to highlight that we think it's important, and as well for the Ministry of Energy, we have a big task related to taking this to the public policy through an administrative case. And Colombia has the goal of reducing the greenhouse emissions. And what we did as a sector is to determine what were going to be the goals for the ministry. For the case of the Ministry of Mine and Energy, we issued a resolution up to 2018 with an integral plan of waste management, and we updated the long-term goals. We included an administrative act. We were validating this plan. Basically, we could discuss what this plan is saying, and we know that we have a reduction. We have a goal up to 2050. We have 5 mitigation scenarios among 8.4 million tons of CO2 and 19.6 million tons of CO2 EQ. So we should be tackling others that are more challenging, and others according to the energetic transition related to gas and oil, for example. And we had focused on short term, which would be 2030. We could have a reduction of emissions of 2.2 million, 11.2 million tons up to 2030. Here we have an importance in waste management because we could have 30 or 40% of our goal up to 2030 related to waste emissions. Now, I wanted to mention that in the plan we have a reduction in emissions, and in the energy we have each one of these segments. We also work on the replacement on the consumption on carbon capture, and we also in plan can include the strategic lines from the ministry, and actually we see the participation and promotion of biogas as an energetic source that could help us to reduce these goals, and this is related to the energetic source as we have discussed. And we have deforestation, because we believe that this is relevant for our transition, where we are seeing that. And the other area that could have a greater intrusion is the transportation sector, because if we make the transition to biomethane, we could work on that with biomethane. Now, just to mention, how can we, according to the goals that we have, how can we materialize this into incorporating these with hydrocarbon of renewable source? Well, we have a law from 2014, which is the energy of biomass, which is related to the law, and we could have the biomass that could be taken advantage in the biomass, and we could generate biomethane respectively. And here I just wanted to mention, for example, the national plan of development. This is what we have along with the compass. Compass is promoting integration with the ministry. So we could have goals and take advantage of the residues. We need to have a synergy between the Ministry of Housing and the Ministry of Energy. And we have an article 27, which is a focus to our goals, which is garbage zero. This is one of the works that we're doing. So we could have all the ministries that work with the waste. For example, the Ministry of the Environment, disposing the industrial waste. We have, for example, the different ministries, the Ministry of Housing that help us with disposing the garbage or waste. And we're working with them in order to promote energetic valuation of these residues. One of the strategies that we have is through energetic communities. And actually, we know that the users, for example, they are key in the value chain related to waste management, because we know that they can be organized to work in energetic communities, and they can make proper use of the non-conventional energies such as biogas. Or maybe we could generate electric energy, for example, right? For example, we have Doña Juana in Bogota. This is generated electrical energy or electrical power, and that could be good for dispatching energy whenever we have a decrease of this. And I wanted to mention that the benefits of the biomass energy for energetic transition. We have energetic well-being with substitution, energetic security. I wanted to mention, for example, by the geography location, we have potential from biogas, and in all of the country, in this map, there are others where we have the gas distribution in the country. We have the biogas production, and this could be connected with the biomethane in these distribution systems, according to the benefits that we could be seeing. Related to the potentials that we could have, we could be discussing 1.38 million tons within 30% of the goals. And when it comes to energetic safety, this could be 20% of the demand of natural gas. So if we take this to a biomethane, we could have a blending. And with the prices that we have now in Colombia, this could be more competitive in the biomethane market. I wanted to show you also some figures. The sanitary backfill, we're only taking advantage of 17,000. Also, 97% of this waste is not being something that we can use, and we have a backbone of this waste management system. This is something that we need to use. And in the next slide, we could see everything related to the pilot. This is how do we take this to the reality? What are the challenges, for example, that we could be evidenced? We're trying to do a pilot. This is an extracting plant. One part is related to energy generation, and we could need, for example, systems of evacuation. We could have energetic valuation, so this could be competitive. doing an upgrade to biomethane or generating electric energy. So the problem is that this company is evaluating all of their residues, and they're using it at composting, but price of molecule as the fusion impacts as well. So we need to consider what are the prices that we need to use to the molecules if our regulation demands something that we need to use. We have a goal and the biogas is not working, but we could be obeying to a market of offer and demand. We actually need to be more competitive so the communities can use that. And the incentives could be key in this case. And this is something that we can implement in other parts of the country as well. This is a price of $1.5 million that we would need to recover. And we have a competitive price as well, which is wood, GLP, and contraband GLP because it's in the border. So this is the work that we could be performing. Part of the example that I wanted to mention, it's important to mention that we're actually having funds of 25 million euros. This is Fin Biogas. In addition to access, we need to consider the greenhouse emissions because this will generate carbon effects. We could be generating incentives. And in this case, we could have a competitive market. We have applicability of the energy transition. So the last slide. We have a market on the offer and demand. Thank you. I think that in the end, I think that within the debates that we're gonna have with questions and actions, I think we could discuss the learnings I've had regarding the information. Can you hear me? I wanted to apologize because I'm having some problems with my computer. I cannot turn on my camera. In spite of the technical difficulties, it's an honor to discuss the experience of Honduras. And I wanted to mention how this has been included in NDC and strategies. Honduras is relatively small country if we compare it with countries as Colombia, Chile, Ecuador, and Peru. This is a country which is much lower. Honduras has a total population of 10 million people, and in some countries, as the federal district, just in that city, we have more than the population of all the rest of the country. So despite of having a small population, we only have organic waste, and this is daily generated. And according to the evaluation as shown in the screen, we have 4,200 tons of solid waste. It's and it's daily issued, all of this. So over there, thank you. Okay, so the problem with this garbage, I know that we're not considering organic waste, but with all of this waste, I think that we can discuss how is this treated. It is one of the main problems that we have in the country, because mainly, nationally speaking, there's no sanitary bathroom. There's no suitable separation of waste, not even in a residence level. I had to hear about Costa Rica, and we have the collection waste management collection, and they're collected nowadays. But in Honduras, we don't have that. All type of waste, they go to a dump, um, an open dump, and all of this situation has different levels of pollution. So beyond that, we could have a series of consequences that are harmful for the environment. We have water quality, and of course, on people's health, this is relatively close to the dumps. So, you can click one more time. Okay, so if we want to focus on climate change, and other harmful effects that we could have, for example, we could mention that organic waste in their decomposition stage, they have a series of expenses. For example, we have methane, we have carbon dioxide, and I think that most of us know that methane could be used with energetic purposes. We have conversations of biogas, for example, as a combination of gas, because it's one of the methane, and this could have a potential aspect in generation, not only for electricity, because we have several pilot experiences, and we could also find a reduction. And even if this is issued with relatively low amounts, according to the sixth assessment report, so diagnose report, the methane that comes from organic waste, it's 27.2 more heavy than of global warming. So that means that it is key and it's crucial to do proper management of solid waste, not only in Honduras, but also globally. Okay? Because this is something that could happen. Next. I have one more. So I had the opportunity, of being part of the NDC that we had in the country, and as a team, we were debating what was gonna be the goals. So believe me that tackling waste management aspect, it has an objective. All the people that are part of the team are broadly aware of the importance of the topic within the NDC, because we wanted to leave this as a priority in the country. So this debate, like I mentioned, was not included, but to contrast what was hard, and still hard, by the way, and this is something that we're gonna be discussing in the end of the presentation, is a limit that we have. I believe that most of the country in Latin America, we have this problem, and that is that we don't have information or reliable data that would be robust, periodical aspects that could tell us everything related to waste, for example, right? Um, how much of the garbage that we could issue, how much is organic, how much is non-organic, um, how much of this is going to go to the sanitary fillings, um, what's related to the dumps on open dumps, how much of this is properly managed or not. So all of this type of information um, is something that we have in a limited manner. And in the NDC, this type of objectives, it is true that we have done our best efforts. Um, we were thinking about having other objectives, particularly because we don't have suitable access to information. We don't have enough information. Therefore, we cannot move forward with this. So the only way or the only source of information that could be reliable in the country are those that are chosen for energy generation. For example, we have heat generation, and all of this is generated or inserted as electricity. We have the African palm. According to what's the price internationally, this will be used with agriculture purposes or for biocomposting. This could be used for electricity, depending on the situation of producers and situation on the markets with regards to the palm oil. And next. So for that, we have built a work team, and this is something that we use for the NNC. And we are gonna have three actors or three categories that are gonna be permanently joining all the construction part involved in all of this. So part of this will be academia. We have the National Office of Forestry Science, and we have the Pan American Agriculture School, and they have been involved actively from the point of view of the agriculture, and from the public area. I'm gonna mention this because this is something that Maria mentioned. I have included acronyms, but people don't understand the acronyms. For example, Serna, and the Secretary of as it's going to help us in this NDC project. We have the Secretary of Agriculture, which is a key part when it comes to waste management. We have the Forestry Observation Institute, and we have been support for the PNAT, and we had the UN program for the environment. So in these sectors, we were working there transversely in all of the NDCs. So the public sector and civil society, I have to say that it's not that they were not considered but due to the large extension of the actors in these sectors, we couldn't consider them among the reduced team. This was a transversal. And in order to consider this, we consider the opinions and the experience of these people. We developed a series of work roundtables. And when we were discussing the residues, of course, there was a large role by the civil society, by the local governments, by the private sector, because this was part of the negotiations. All right. So articulating the actors, not in a reduced matter, but in these work tables, was hard. This was a debate aspect that was complicated because there was a lot of inequity among the roles. We have a specialist when it comes to waste management. We were also having people of local governments that were devoted to collecting the waste. And we have, particularly talking about waste, we had a big disparity. So that's why it was extremely hard to have consensus, because due to the lack of information, each one of the acting roles on those tables, they were contributing from their experience. It is quite good to have that from our own experience, but since there were no data that supported this, there was lots of skepticism from other actors. And this was a process that was highly complicated. In the end, we achieved some consensus within the roundtables. However, there was some ideas. We said, okay, we're gonna do all of this, but all of this needs to be considered when new information appears. And I wanted to mention that the lack of information in the waste management sector is fundamental for planning. So next. All right, so as mentioned in our NDC, there are two objectives that are directly focused on waste management. Both objectives are going to be tackled in a different way. First, I'm going to be discussing the integral waste management of the NDC. Now, this objective is directly the one that is related or analyzing in the most holistic way everything related to Honduras. For example, we include the deposition, treatment, collection, and so forth. And from an integral point of view, and how is this actually transferred to the final deposit? We are including a large change on the population. I have mentioned this in other slides, that we actually don't have this sort of culture, for example, that like in Costa Rica, of separating the waste. In Honduras, the objective, if we want to discuss this in a more holistic way, we can start by a cultural change, and that's what I'm mentioning. that we deal with this in a more integral manner. All right, so the next objective will be related to bioenergy. So we could be discussing information like such. But this is aiming to more specific information and taking advantage of these residues, particularly with energetic aspects. So as you can see, this waste of bioenergy tackles the waste management from a more sectorial aspects in a more partialized way. And this is seen more specifically in an energetic sector. Now, what's the purpose of taking advantage of organic waste from the point of view of energy? Well, you can see the equation there. Basically, what we're saying is that the methane, according to the IPCC, and what happened? Basically, what we do is once we burn this, this generates the CO2 and two molecules of vapor. What does that mean? It means that we transform the molecule, which is more potent than the one CO2 molecule, because this is a greenhouse emission, and this would be considered among the inventory. So what we're doing is reducing and we could generate electricity. What could include diesel, for example, to generate electricity? Next. Okay, maybe you can close in a minute, please, because we are right on time. Yes, thank you. So basically, in the long run, what I wanted to mention is that still we don't have a decarbonization strategy. This is in a final stage, but we still don't have one. So that means that the concerning results to waste could change according to modeling raw material that other sectors have. Next. Just to quickly mention that there's a proposal. This is currently working. And in this law, when it comes to biodiesel, this is mandatory. So that would generate a boom that could point to this better use of this waste. Okay, I will finish with this. I mentioned this with other challenges. And actually, this makes quite hard that we could take advantage of this internationally. We still have not finished this, and once again, we don't have final data on this regard. However, the most important thing, it is crucial to have a change in minds of the people so we could take advantage of the residues in a more suitable way. And this is something that we don't have and other neighboring countries have. On my hand, thank you. And I am going to start answering any type of questions right now and maybe in the end of the session. Thank you, Jorge, for your presentation. And it is quite clear presentation. I would say that part of the challenges that we had in the end is something that we share with other countries in the region. as was discussed before. Okay, Victor, go ahead. Yes. So, what I'm going to do, I am going to do a presentation in English. My presentation is in English. I'm going to be speaking in Spanish. So, I'm going to switch to English and the translation will be in Spanish. So I could answer other questions later. Just thank to all the community of practice, Graciela, Ana Maria, all of the team for the invitation. My name is Victor. I am the police uh, information. I don't talk as other countries. And we work with the Ministry in Climate in Brazil. And basically, what we do is we work with them, everything related to organic waste. But I am going to discuss a little bit how we will be debating on the climate policies for waste, particularly how is this related to bioenergy. I'm gonna discuss some of the things that we are contributing to. And in particularly in this one, all of this debate of the NDCs, I'm going to share my screen. So everything that I'm going to be adding now, this is public matters of the Brazilian government. So basically, Plano Clima is a plan that discuss the celebration of Brazil up to COP30. So this is a plan which would be related to discussion groups that has adaptation and mitigation plans. This is specifically related to interministry plan that Brazil has. And this plan is related up to 2035, not only for the evidence, but how the IDC is going to be working in the level of these policies. We have transversal strategies, everything related to Clima Plan, and we have implementation means, we have education, training, development, as well as others. In the mitigation plans, we have 7. These are 15. According to the sector, we have other type of approaches. All of this is going to be consolidated as a scope with the contributions of Brazil. We have a presentation that we include as Brazil of reaching net zero up to 2050, and 2030 we could reach a reduction that we have. That means going from 1.79 gigatons of CO2 equivalent today up to 1.2 up to 2030. But we're still debating this. And Brazil, basically, I wanted to mention that we have the waste plan that is going to be developed. And this is going to be incorporated within organic waste. And now we are doing everything related to the organic waste plan. This is a contribution to the mitigation plan in the waste management aspect. When it comes to the organic waste plan in Brazil, this would be the second highest source of methane in the country. We're just losing the livestock that we wanted to include, and we have the objective of defining goals to discussing the organic waste sent to the sanitary waste, as well as food collection, because reducing this waste is important. Now, what's happening, for example, in practical terms? Well, I'm going to introduce the numbers later in the presentation, but we have a scope which is high when it comes to composting. This is a priority thing when it comes to organic waste, because these are technologies that have a change of scales when it comes to CAPEX and OPEX, the resolutions as well. And this is something that we could perform in smaller cities and even larger cities. But we have the availability to discuss biomethane. And this is officially happen in plants of medium size. We usually take advantage of the biogas associated with composting plants for these areas. Now, particularly Brazil is quite focusing in using anaerobic digestion. And we also take advantage of biogas in biomethane, because Brazil, the electricity has a low price and there's no much viability to take advantage of that. So upgrading for biomethane, it's important, particularly when it comes to the natural gas. And this is something that we are prioritizing in our country specifically. Now, how is this related to other things? Well, the government is debating the NDCs, but as civil society, we have included a proposal on behalf of the NDC of Brazil, and this is something that we need to do, and other aspects that we need to do, and I'm going to give you all the links. This debate will be related with the carbon budget. Brazil is going to use this methodology, and this is related to what would be the carbon budget of Brazil, right?
Well, so what's the methodology that we have used? It's the equity and historical responsibility. It's a methodology that you can access here. And basically, it tries to estimate what a country needs to reduce based on its historical emissions. That's an important discussion because we know that some global south countries are now emitting high amounts of CO2, as Brazil, China, Indonesia, and some other countries. But when you look historically, and the carbon that is like burning us in the atmosphere, it stays a lot of years. We have historical responsibility from global north countries, although like UK or France or Germany might not emit that much today. Historically, they emitted a lot. So we use this equity and historical responsibility to define the carbon budget of Brazil that you can access the data here. And then we have arrived in a carbon budget that we need to address in Brazil. So you can see here what is the proposal for Brazil reducing their emissions until 2035. That's the NDC proposal. And this discussion was planned in some, what I can say, it's like in some premises that what is viable in each sector of emission: agriculture, waste, industry, energy, and land use change. So we modeled all the sectors who can speed up and who cannot to reach this carbon budget historically equitable. And we needed to model the waste sector. So for the waste sector, we basically assumed some points, some premises to model this. That is, we will have universal coverage of waste collection and sewage until 2035. We'll close all dump sites by 2028, but we still have more than 2,500 dump sites. Increase the recovery of recyclables, increase biological treatment from almost 0.3 today for 18 by 2035. We'll reach a percentage of biogas from landfills that are recovered by 58% by 2035. And we don't consider thermal treatment routes as a possible and viable and interesting solutions for reducing methane, because you are just trading off emissions for CO2 and it's not a linear solution. So we are focusing on organic waste recycling and dry recyclables, recycling and reducing the generation of waste. So these are the premises basically. And basically you can see in the other pages of the study, the 76, all the model emissions that might result from these. So basically the increase in the dry recyclables and increase in the biological treatment of organic waste. And how was this done? Basically, as I have mentioned, most of this work was done by the logic of carbon budget. So you will be able to see that sometimes the waste sector emissions might increase because Brazil still don't have waste collection for the whole country. So when you start collecting this waste and sending to landfills, it might increase in the beginning, but then we can offset it with the increase of separate collection and organic waste recycling. Well, I'll drop in the chat all the links for the studies and presentations so you can have a closer look at this, and hope I could elucidate some of the points. But if you have any doubts, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, for sharing your presentation. I know that this could be of interest for members of the community. Santiago, you can go ahead with the Q&A session. There's some questions that we have answered, but I'm interested in discussing with the other members on the session if they have any questions, so we can discuss with the panelists, and we can give them the go ahead. Yes, thank you for the 3 panelists. We have had 3 enriching presentations, and I have seen in the chat box some of the questions that have been answered. Please raise your hand, the people that would like to have a question or ask a question to the moderators, and we are going to activate microphones now. Some questions were related to contact information. Remember that we can provide all of this information. There's some people that would like to share their contact information in the chat box. You can do that as well, so you can connect with other people. So I don't know if anybody which is present here, they would like to guide the questions to the panelists in this case. I don't know if you would like to do that. Yes. Good morning. Thank you, Santiago. So maybe to Jorge, when it comes to the experiences, when it comes to waste management and organic waste, I would like to highlight the context We have lots of opportunity among the countries that are part of the Central American session. These are small countries, and we still don't have the area of certain countries. And I would like to hear, I love to have heard the experiences of Jorge. And we still have a long way to go, by the way. We are including, um, we're having lots of learnings from the experiences from Colombia in the workshop. And I would like to discuss, for example, the potential aspects on how are we going to work with solid waste. But for example, along that line, I wanted to ask Jorge, maybe you have had experiences working with the municipalities. I know if this has been a critical aspect for success. How we have this approach with local governments? Should I answer now or later? Yes. So maybe people, if you want to leave your question on the chat box, you can do it. Thank you, Aurora, for your comments. Actually, it is a delight to work with Costa Rica. I have not had the opportunity to go there. I know a little bit about all of the aspects on how things have worked or are handled in Costa Rica. To answer to this question, we have had some experience from a municipal point of view, and actually the experiences that we have when it comes to sanitary backfill come from the municipal experiences. In Honduras, we have 198 municipalities, and we don't have much municipalities that have included sanitary backfill with suitable management of waste. It is true that we have local governments that have shown and have expressed their interest in following this way or this path. One of the main limits that we have, that's what was mentioned previously, when it comes to financing. But definitely there's experience to local governments, and I'm sure that in the SICA framework we could discuss a little bit about exchange of experiences to learn a little bit about the reality from Costa Rica. Yes, thank you, Jorge. I'm sure that we're going to be in contact and discussing all of this. Yes, I wanted to take another question before continuing with the session. Somebody that would like to ask a question now, maybe? So if there's no questions, I would like to answer or ask the question, the panelist. How do you think that this cultural aspect could be reflected in the MES? For example, when it comes to waste, we have mentioned this in the chat box. Um, when it comes to good management or good waste management, we need to discuss cultural aspects. How do you think this could be reflected in the MES? For example, I wanted to ask this question to the panelists. I don't know if anybody would like to take the roles or the word on the floor. Victor, Leani, yes. Just give me 1 second. I wanted to mention that clearly when it comes to waste management, particularly from our point of view, generating a culture is going to help us to have a greater efficiency in processing the waste. We were talking a little bit about the value of the products being the composting. And if we have efficient management of waste, we could separate what it's something that we could take advantage, for example, glass and others, something that we cannot use. For example, we're using for the cement, which is something that we call a CDR, and this could be an aerobic process. And according to the territorial problems, we could define if this works on an aerobic process, or if maybe we could have a composting aspect. Now, this could take place in a most efficient way if we discuss, for example, uh, education, right? Because we're in the COP right now, and we could discuss, for example, what are the this type of circle when it comes to managing the services. Yes. Go ahead, Victor, and then I will give the go ahead to Adrian. All right. So here we believe that it is quite important that the NDS, they need to understand that the solution specifically in the waste sector goes to a change of behavior, because we don't have a technology problem. We have technologies that have been hard on the sector, and we need to discuss the change of behavior, organizing the system so population can be involved. And we could have availability of garbage for the different solutions in the city. So it is important to mention that the change of this is one of the solutions, and we should agree that this is a social aspect. But we're still seeing people from the ministries, governments, and agencies that are proposing technology solutions for a problem that is humane. And it is important that all of this financing process understands that it is necessary to invest in mobilization and communication, which will be a solution for the sector. And this is something that we need to include. We need to have enough information according to challenges when it comes to a change of behavior. So Adrian, Sandy, you can go ahead, and then we can go to the next session. Welcome. My name is Alian Sandy. I am in the Latin American network of carbon management in Latin America. So I wanted to mention something that I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is, and something that we're not considering, is the municipal act. According to the aspects of each region, sometimes we think about companies, and the factor would be, how do we regulate this with the cities? I think that in my experience, we could know that we sometimes forget about this. And when we start knocking doors, sometimes it's not clear about what we need to do. And something that I wanted to discuss with Jorge is that I have experience of working in Honduras now, and from certain municipalities, they don't know the waste to energy solutions. We have a generation of energy, and this has some implications. Something that the NDC can strengthen could be certain parameters and legislations, which is something that we discussed in the chat box. This needs to be managed through a hierarchization or a hierarchization of residues. And this is something where I see the analysis, but the NEC, if we consider the biodigestions and other type of solutions, this is not going to have a greater strength. And this is something that generates information. Now, we could have certain aspects that could have a lot of implications in the environment and health. So just to summarize three, I think that the NDC needs to have a strength in the and this is something that we could have in our information that we require. Yes, and this is something, another question that we have, and this is how we see the intersection to incentivize these projects to deal with methane reduction and the NDS in the respective countries. And I would like to mention, maybe, I don't know if somebody would like to discuss from the speakers, they can answer these questions. Thank you. And now we will start finishing. This is just a single intervention, and then we could finish with the final questions. Thank you, Santiago. I'm just gonna tackle some information. I think what Francis is discussing is important. However, let's remember that each country we have um, different legislations. For example, for Honduras, when it comes to credit, we have a law when it comes to forestry. But there's nothing in written when it comes to waste management. Therefore, we should start discussing the legal aspects. However, it is interesting because and this is something that we're going to discuss in a meeting that we have with the authorities, Ministry of Resources. But thank you for the comment. All right, thank you. I think this is a good session. Thank you for all the panelists for sharing their own experiences and all the people that have been part of our interventions. And Ana Maria, maybe you can make some announcements. Thank you. Ana Maria, you can go ahead. Yes, thank you. And well, I would like to thank our panelists. Thank you for the presentations. I think this shows all of the opportunities that we have, the challenges as well. We see, for example, the value of sharing of this type of exchanges. So I wanted to highlight what do we need to do, for example, for in our climate potential. We could include all the contribution change in organic waste, for example, and all of these different modalities that we have been discussing in the community of practice, composting, reducing waste coming from food, biodigestion, biomethane. And I wanted to highlight the importance of coordinating between the different institutions related to policies, the data, which is something important and was mentioned, taking better decisions when it comes to robust aspects, capabilities as well, the need of not starting from zero, but also learning from what we are doing, everything that we have tried before, everything that has not worked, what part of our role in a community of practice is working here. So I wanted to thank our colleagues from the community of practice that we have had today. The recording of this session is going to be in the private file for members in the community of practice of bioenergy. And we're hoping to have a greater opportunity of finding synergy in both communities. And I wanted to mention to the members of the community practice that the next activities on 2024, we're gonna have a training session on formulating projects. This is going to be led by CCAP. This is going to happen on November 20. We're going to have an open webinar to the audience related to the carbon markets. And we are going to be sharing this as well. And we're going to close with the MetLAC members with a special session, which is a networking session and a definition of priorities for the work up to 2025. So with that said, we would like to ask the MetLAC members to take note of these upcoming activities from the members of Community of Practice or Energy. We are going to be calling you for next activities. So thank you for being interested, for participating. And this is going to be a virtual session, and we would start discussing plans for 2025. We would like to establish some priorities. And thank you for your participation. Thank you, Leani. Thank you, Victor, for your contribution. We would like to congratulate you for the big work that you're doing and lots of success. Have a nice day. Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.